Hey, what's up, guys? Getting back on YouTube. I know I haven't been on for a while. Um, I want to talk about where things stood in Serie A, and now that we're midway through the Champions League, give my thoughts. Um, and we'll start with Europe, and then we'll go to the Serie A. But my 2 cents on the Champions League, the new format is, I'm interested to see, obviously, but I just feel like um, that it's kind of getting watered down with so many games, and there's some teams that they probably really shouldn't be in there. um, but I'm still interested in seeing it. I grew up in the 90s, and I remember watching the Champions League, and it was the 80s and 90s, it was the champions only, and the games, you would play them, and they were very meaningful because you'd never see them. I just feel like with the new Champions League, this format, that you're gonna see these games more often. 8 games in the group stage, but you're gonna see all these special games yearly now, which could lead to you know it could lead to taking the uniqueness away from it. But I'm still like to watch Champions League. It's good. Um, you know, right now, halfway through, Liverpool, they're number one in the Champions League, and rightfully so. I mean, they've won their games. They beat AC Milan. They beat Bologna. I forgot who else they played. They played Bayern Leverkusen, and I forgot who else they played. I mean, honestly, I don't think they've had, the hardest schedule. AC Milan at the beginning of the season, they were, just not good. They got a new coach. They're trying to figure things out. I know they just beat Real Madrid, so maybe they're going to turn a corner, but AC Milan was not really good. And if you look back at the highlights, I mean, Liverpool, they scored 2 headers. I mean, proper defending should be able to prevent that from happening. So, but anyways, they're first. You give them their kudos. Some of these other teams up at the top, Sporting, AS Monaco, Brest. I mean, I'm not gonna go look at all these teams over here, but I don't know how strong their strength schedule is. I know Sporting just beat Manchester City, and I was happy for that. Anytime that happens, it's great. But this is another thing with this league phase. Like, you have a team like, and I'm not taking nothing away from them. I'm sure they're a great team, but just listen to some of these teams. Sporting, AS Monaco, Brest. They're in the top 5 of the Champions League. I mean, if you look at like Brest, I mean, I don't know who they played, but I looked at some of these teams, and they really haven't played anybody. I mean, they really haven't played the top dogs. So, you have teams like, Bayern Leverkusen, Manchester City, Juventus, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, that are farther down the poll. So that's another gripe that I got with this, league phase. It is, it's all, AI generated games, and you don't know, who you're going to get. And some teams, they may get a good draw, and they're at the top of the table, So, I mean, so with that said, those are my gripes with the league phase. I'm still interested to see it. And with that, I'll start with Bologna. I mean, they're far down on the table there, but I mean, I'm not making any excuses for them. But they got a new coach. They lost, their striker. They lost Calafiori as well. So they're learning, this is their first time in the competition, and they've been competitive. I mean, they went to play in England, and they played a good game. I know they lost 2-0, but they could have scored. They played a good game. They tied Shakhtar their first game. Aston Villa, they had to go to England again, to play these guys. It was a competitive game, and they lost. And then they lost in the last minute against Monaco, who is, the third-place team in the table. So, they're growing, and it takes time. I remember Atalanta a couple years ago when they first got into the Champions League. They didn't win their first 2 or 3 or 4 games, and then they won the last couple, and they ended up progressing. So, Bologna, they got some time. They I don't expect them to make it past this round, but we'll see what happens. I honestly think they have one of the toughest schedules. In the Champions League. If there was if there was like a strength of schedule, I'm sure there is, but I'm sure, Bologna has one of the toughest ones. So moving on from there, we have Atalanta. Atalanta is firing. I mean, they haven't let up a goal. I don't think they've let up a goal all Champions League. They're firing. These guys are firing. And the greatness with Gasparini is that this guy, he lost one of his midfielders, Koopmeiners, Juventus. He lost Scamacca, and this guy just plugs in people, and he still has a great team. They haven't let up a goal all Champions League, and they played Stuttgart, Shakhtar. They played Arsenal. I forgot who else they played, but they're, just on the outskirts of the top 8. They got 8 points. They're 4 points behind first place. So Atalanta's doing great in Europe. They're doing great in the Champions League and in Serie A. This is the model, I think, for Italian teams. You know what I mean? Stick to, a strength of ours. Have, a strong coaching staff like Gasparini. He's probably one of the top, if not the top in the world. Renovate your stadium, and, don't spend selfishly, and go from there. It's working for Atalanta. They're UEFA Cup champions, and they're doing awesome in the Champions League and in Serie A. What more could you want? We got AC Milan. I don't agree with Paulo Fonseca. I heard him in the press conference earlier this week. He was saying that that it's harder to play against Monza and Cagliari than it is Real Madrid. I wouldn't say that. Just because that come back to bite you. But it's not. It's not. Nobody should be surprised. They've had problems in both competitions. I mean, they lost to Liverpool at home the first game of the competition. They went up, and then they went up 1, then they let up 2 goals from the header, and then the last one. Liverpool, they played better than them. They deserve to win. Liverpool's playing good now, and they lost to Bayern Leverkusen in Germany. I didn't watch the game. From what I understood, they played pretty good, and they deserved probably at least a draw. What else? Then they beat I forgot who. I think maybe like Club Bruges. I forgot who, but they got to win the last 2 games. They got to win, and now they're back. Probably like mid-table. In Serie A, they're putzing along. I would say they're probably playing better in Europe than they are in Serie A. So maybe Fonseca's got a point. I'm not, crazy about the AC Milan team. I like to see Italian teams. They got to have Italian DNA, Italian coach, and at least 50% of the players got to be Italian. If you look at all the most successful teams in Italy, Napoli, Inter, Atalanta, Lazio, Fiorentina, they all have Italian coaches. They all have Italian coaches. They all have Italian coaches, and they have Italian players playing on the squad. So that's my biggest gripe with the AC Milan. I just think it's that AC Milan historically they've been a team with Italian DNA in this team. I just don't see it. They have. I think Gabbia's out injured. I think he would be starting over. Whoever was it, Pavlovic or whoever's in there. Then they got the other guy, Torriciano. I would like to see more Italian players on the team, and I would, I would like to see an Italian manager. But anyways, they are where they are. They just got a great win against Real Madrid, and so let's see what they could do. But if this doesn't work out with Fonseca, I would like to see what I just said, because I think it's very important for the Italian teams to have that DNA in them. So that's AC Milan. We talked about Bologna. Juventus. Juventus is, they lost to Stuttgart and they tied, Lille. They beat PSV and they beat, who was the other team? RB Leipzig. So they're in the middle. They're in the top third of the pack. And they're not doing bad. They're also not doing bad in Serie A. So they're having a pretty decent season. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. He's a big Juventus fan, and he was saying that when Allegri was the coach, they were doing better than they are now. And you know what? I kind of agree with him. I think they were doing better. And Allegri, he didn't have, all these purchases that they got this season. So, I don't know. But, Motta, he needs times. I coach football, and I'm very involved with football. I know ci vuole tempo, per preparare la squadra and per farli giocare bene. So he needs time. Give him some time, But I think Juventus, they're having a good campionato and a good European campaign. So we talked about Bologna, we talked about AC Milan, we talked about Atalanta and Juventus, and then lastly we have Inter. Inter, they're in the top 5 of the Champions League, and they're second place in Serie A. They haven't been, they haven't been playing well, in my opinion. I mean, they barely beat Venezia. I think they tied Monza too. And, and they've had some kind of, kind of like games, all season. But you know what? They still get the results. They're second place in Serie A. If they win Sunday against Napoli, they could be first place. And Inter, they got results in the Champions League. They went to Manchester City. They got a draw. Then they had a couple games after that. They beat Young Boys. I think Inzaghi was playing kind of a rotated squad against Young Boys. They beat them in the last couple minutes. They also, I forgot who else they played, but they played Arsenal yesterday. It was a very, Arsenal fans, they're all crying. But this was a very, rotated side that Inzaghi played. I mean, Thuram, Barella, Mkhitaryan, DeMarco, Acerbi, Bastoni, those are usually starters for Inter, and they didn't play. I mean, they had half of the lineup was, people, reserves. Not that the guys that are reserves suck, but they're not the first choice. And I know Arsenal fans will say, oh, they dominated them or whatever. Honestly, I think that Arsenal played right into Inzaghi's hands. I think he was looking forward to the Napoli match because he sees that as a more important match. He wants to get in first place in Serie A, and he rested his team. And I think the tactics he's deployed, he said, listen, let the Arsenal come and try to huff and puff and score, and they didn't. And that's reflected in the stats. I mean, Arsenal had about 60% possessions, 40% for Inter, and they had about 20 shots to 7 Inter, but I think that's exactly what Inzaghi wanted to do. He wanted to, that was were his tactics. He wanted to try to conserve energy and get a result. I think if they lost, he probably would be not be happy, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. And they got a result. They got a result. They won 1-0. So who's better than them? They're in the top 5 of the Champions League. They potentially could be the first place in Serie A. And yeah. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on the Champions League. Midway through, it's November 7th, 2024. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents. I think 4 Italian teams are going to progress. Bologna, they still have a chance, but they got to score a goal. They've had some competitive games, but it's tough. It's new for them, and they lost some players, new coach. They're, ci vuole tempo, come detto prima. I'll do quickly the Europa League. They haven't played yet, but Lazio, they're in first place of the Europa League. They got 3 wins. Lazio is on fire in the Serie A, man. I remember some, other Italian, podcasts and, they were, and other, Italian football fans, they were talking, very poorly about Lazio. They don't know what they don't have a good youth academy. The owner over there, he's needs to go. He's got old thinking. You know what? They had Maurizio Sarri. Then they had, I forgot what his name is, the Croatian guy. He used to be the coach. Then they got that guy after Sarri left. And the guy left after they got him at the end of last season, and then he left at the end of that season. They got this new guy, and they're freaking phenomenal. They're, so who's the dummy, Lazio, they're in first place in Europa League. We also have Roma in the Europa League, and they got 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 loss. So they got 4 points. If they could get a win today, that could catapult them up. So Roma's probably like middle of the pack, and Lazio is number 1. For Conference League, Fiorentina is number 2, behind Chelsea, 2 wins and 0 losses. So that's what I got. That's midway through the Champions League season, 24-25. And, regarding Serie A, I think the race is phenomenal, man. I mean, the top 6 teams in Serie A, I mean, they're really good teams. I mean, Napoli, Inter, Juventus, Atalanta, Fiorentina, and Lazio. I mean, these are really strong teams. 6 of them. There's a 4-point gap between first and 6th place. I mean, that is crazy. There's no other league that I could see out there in the world that's that close. I mean, you could get into first place from 6th place. You get from 6th place close to first place in the week, or in 2 weeks, maybe you get up to first place. So, and luckily for those teams, Roma and AC Milan, they're kind of like not they're underperforming and not doing what's expected of them. If those guys were firing on all cylinders, we'd have 8 teams. And this is what I always tell everybody about Serie A. Everybody, all these, people that maybe they just started watching soccer and stuff like football, they don't never watch the Serie A. I mean, there are so many good historical teams in Serie A, and they're very tough. I mean, I just named 6 right there. Where do you find 6 teams in any of these leagues that that they're playing in Europe, they're playing in Serie A, and they're doing good? And it should be 8. It should be 8 plus. I mean, you talk about those 6 teams in Europe, and then you're also talking about AC Milan and Roma, and there's many other good teams in Serie A. They're just not as well known as those ones. So, anyways, I think the season is off to a good start in Serie A, and we'll see what happens. Napoli lost last week to Atalanta 3-0, and yeah. So that's all I got for today. Make sure you share my video, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try to get on more often to do, these videos, give updates. I'm just very busy, and subscribe. It helps the channel, and share, and make some comments. Let's talk. You don't agree with me? So, you, you know, like I said, I do this because I like to talk about football and Italian football, and I have you guys to talk to, and I don't really have that many people in my physical life that want to talk about football all the time. So that's why, I have this to share Italian football, share calcio, and to talk, to you guys. So make sure you subscribe, share my video, like, and comment. And if you want to hear me talk about something, let me know. Arrivederci e buona serata.